All right. Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see you virtually.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this show.
Yeah, so today we're talking all about our appearance on Zoom. And so I want to start by asking you, how have your feelings about your appearance changed now that we are a year into the pandemic and your background, what you're wearing? Let's start there. Like how do you feel about your appearance nowadays?
It's so funny because the three of us have been having this kind of ongoing conversation, right? And I feel like we were all leaning towards this like letting yourself go camp,
Yes.
which I am firmly in, but I think there are two camps. I think there's like the let yourself go, it's a pandemic. I mean, that's how I've been. So I kind of had like a little bit unique situation because I was on maternity leave right before the pandemic happened. So I was already letting myself go. So it was a very like smooth, like I hadn't dyed my hair in a very long time. So I just gave up dyeing my hair. I was already like wearing comfortable clothes. So I just kind of continued. And I think, I don't know, I feel like for some people, that's kind of been like, it's been this freeing, like you're not in the office, you don't have to care as much what you look like. Then I think there's kind of the other extreme, right?
Yeah. So before all of this, were you, taking the time in the morning to do hair and makeup before work when we were going into the office?
Well, it's like this idea of what's professional, which we've talked about, in
Mhm.
various different places. Like for a woman, and I'd love to hear what like you guys think about it, and especially, and I think maybe that's where that other camp falls, right? Of like I have to look at myself all the time now. And
Yeah.
everybody else is looking at me so much more in my face than when you're in a meeting. And so you feel like even more pressure to wear makeup and to like look a certain way. I don't know. For me, it's been like the the being at home part makes I don't know, makes it feel like not the same as being in the office. Like it would have been a big deal for me to go into the office without makeup on or into the
Totally.
office wearing jeans or, like not kind of dressed up, but it just it feels so much different and it's interesting I think how much I've noticed the men at our company
Hmm.
letting themselves go a bit more than the women at our company. How have you guys felt about like wearing makeup and being quote unquote professional and presentable and all that?
It's funny. I feel like in some ways I've had the opposite experience from you in the sense that like I wear more makeup now than I ever did in the office.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm staring at my face all day
Mhm.
and it makes me feel so anxious. Like, thinking back on my pandemic purchases, like that's what it is. I'm wearing a grout fit right now. Like it's gray
What
on
is
top,
that?
gray. It's it's
What's it?
it's gray sweatpants on top, gray sweatpants on the bottom. Like no one's trying here.
Oh,
But
like grout is that like from um that Marvel movie? What's a grout
no,
fit?
I don't know.
Just
I thought
gray?
this
I've
was
never
yeah, it's like a
I think you're coining that term
I
unless
don't
I'm
know.
just like totally out of it.
I've never
A
heard that
grout a
either.
grout fit coined
Me and
here.
my
It's
me
a
and my
gray
boyfriend
out.
use
As
it
our
all the
producer
time, but
saying, it's
I
a gray outfit, Kate. Grout
yeah,
fit.
yeah,
Okay. All
Josh
right.
knows.
Okay.
Josh
Okay.
knows. Okay.
I need to use that.
Um but I am wearing, I mean, I don't wear much makeup, but like I am wearing a little bit today. Whereas actually when I went to the office, I never wore makeup. Um,
So
Hmm.
is your calculus just because you feel like people are seeing your face more because you have like literally have a camera in your face?
this is gonna sound bad, and I like don't want to admit this about myself, but it's like not
It's
even
a safe space. No one's
it's not
Yes.
judging.
even hopefully someone's listening, guys.
It's
Welcome
still
to
a
our
safe
first episode.
it's
It's the
still a
I'm
first
safe
episode. We
space.
don't
we're gonna get real because we could talk about how some days I just don't wear deodorant because I'm home alone.
I have made the transition to natural deodorant during this time, and let me tell you, it was tough and not necessarily effective.
See, it's so weird
Um,
because I put on perfume before this because I'm like, now I feel fancy. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't like who's smelling me, but I feel fancy. The
that's
things you like
funny.
do for yourself sometimes. Yeah. But you were
No, my
saying,
my thing is like it's not about people like seeing me. It's not, if I go to an edit meeting, it's not about people seeing me. It's like I'm in a meeting. I'm like a very self-conscious person generally, I think. And sometimes I look at myself on Zoom and I'm like,
I just
did
stare at
my
myself the whole
did my
time.
nose always look like that? Like,
See, I think the secret is, and I guess this is another part of it that we should talk about, is like not looking at yourself. Like
Mm.
that's my my secret to
yeah,
not being self-conscious is I like tab away from, even if I have my camera on, I tab away because I don't want to look at myself. Or you have the grid view instead of the speaker view if I'm presenting in a meeting. Like I don't want to see my giant face filling the screen.
yeah.
Or the calculus of like when you turn your camera off. Like when do you guys have a calculus of like when you turn your cameras off?
Yeah, I was gonna say for me personally, I never really had time to do my makeup and everything like that before I commuted because I had a long commute into the office. So some days it was literally like, okay, either I'm gonna eat breakfast or do my makeup. I can't do both.
Mhm.
But I was definitely self-conscious about the way I looked because of the fact that I am a plus size woman. I'm about a size 14, 16. So I always took into account like, is this professional enough or is this hugging my curves too much? And now I'm glad that I don't have to worry about that because as you said, I'm pretty much wearing my grout fit every day. And as far as makeup, I never really felt the need for it in the office, but there were certain times where I would put makeup on if I was going to a happy hour afterwards or something like that. So now I feel like really more confident that I don't have to do all this stuff and like nobody's really judging me. I mean, there are times where I'll say like, okay, let me put a real shirt on. You know how you have your real shirts versus sweatshirts?
Yeah.
Let me put a real shirt on because I have to be on camera during this meeting. But for the most part, I have definitely been in the camp of letting myself go.
I mean, I feel like that's a great byproduct of the pandemic. Like maybe it kind of starts to level the playing field. I mean, I hate to make it about gender all the time, but I feel like this is a huge gender issue. And
Yeah.
where, when you talk about like the cost of wearing makeup, which our colleague and my former co-host of Secrets of the Most Productive People, Anissa Purposari Horton, wrote an article, The Cost of Wearing Makeup in the Office. And yeah, like she wrote about one, like the financial cost, like how
Oh,
much money,
yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
as like you touched on that, like how much money you're spending on hair dye. I don't even know
Waxes,
everything.
everything.
Everything. And then like the time cost that you said,
Yeah.
Christina, of like how much of your life is spent like putting makeup on. And
Let's
yeah,
talk about it because I have natural hair, but it's not like I just roll out of bed in the morning. Like,
it's
as a
not.
Black woman, every little strand of hair has to be put in place. And so it would take me like an hour or 2 hours to do my hair if I was doing something, if I had an event or something to go to. So even now, though, I am still self conscious, getting on Zoom, like, I want to make sure every hair is in place.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'd love to hear you talk about that too. Of on the new way we work, we had Dr. Courtney McClooney came on, and she was talking about code switching, and she
Hmm.
talked about especially Black women and like during the pandemic when like everything was shut down, like what do you do with your hair, and like do you look, this whole idea of like, and I do like air quotes of like professional, like being
Yeah.
professional and how you're perceived. Like how have you felt it's different, like being a Black woman and like being on Zoom and
Yeah,
looking
there
a
have been
certain
so
way.
many times where I felt like my hair looked a mess, but like that's my natural state. Like having my hair in a protective style, like twist or something
Mhm.
like that. I would never ever go to the office with my hair in twist. But now that I'm online, I'm in my comfort zone. I feel like, okay, here I am. This is me. And as you said, I can turn off the camera if need be, but I do feel like if I turn off my camera in certain meetings, people are going to question why. And maybe that's just my anxiety. Maybe I just think people are thinking about me when they're really not. But I do feel like a little bit of pressure as a Black woman. Like I always want to be present. I want people to think that I'm being productive. So I need to have my camera on to like show that I'm not just sitting here multitasking. So there is a little bit of added pressure, definitely.
Yeah, I think there, well, that's interesting too, because there's like a calculus, right? In and maybe this is a little bit in like where you are in your career or who's in the meeting with you, with the, like your bosses in the meeting versus, you know, colleagues you're more comfortable with, of like how you feel. I mean, I certainly have a calculus where I look at my meeting schedule. I'm like, okay, I guess I should wear makeup this day. Like there's literally
Yes.
like the like handful of days a month that I'm like, I should put on a presentable top and wear makeup and have my camera on and have it be quiet and whatever. And like, oh, these are the meetings that like I feel comfortable enough. I'm, you know, this far in my career and have worked here for a while that like I don't feel self-conscious or feel like people will think I'm slacking if I turn the camera off or like look whatever way or whatever. But
Yeah, I feel like tenure is definitely a part of it too, because I only had like 3 or 4 months under my belt at Fast Company before we started working from home.
Wow.
So some people have literally not met me at all in person and they've never seen my face. And then, you know, as a young person, this is kind of one of my first full-time jobs. I feel like I do have to prove myself and, you know, show that I'm hardworking. So that's why I feel like I have to keep my camera on, so to speak. But Yaz, what were you gonna say?
No, I don't know. It's funny. I feel like tenure is a really big part of this conversation. So, you know, pre-pandemic when I was in the office, I think, you know how we have our most creative people issue, MCP? I
Mhm.
would say I'm an MCD at Fast Company, most casual dresser. And a big part of it for me was always like I need to be comfortable. Like I get bloated all the time, but especially when I'm writing, I'm like, I will wear baggy jeans to the office because I can just do my work better than wearing skinny jeans. And sometimes I felt bad about it, but now it's like every day
in your
I
new
am
outfit.
yeah, I
But
am wearing a gray outfit.
here's the secret to adulthood and life, I think. That like, and I think everybody like intrinsically knows it, like nobody's paying attention to you. Like
Yeah.
we did an article, I forget who wrote it, about it was like an experiment. And I think our editor in chief participated in it. It was like a couple of women in the office wore the same thing
Yeah.
every day for like a month to see and like to see if anybody would, and literally nobody noticed. Like
Wow.
nobody's looking at you, nobody's noticing. Like when you just said like you were the most casual dresser, I'm like, really? What did you ever wear in the office? And I'm
Yeah.
like literally trying to remember anything you ever wore. Like I just, you don't pay
Yeah.
attention. Like no one's paying attention to you. And like I did an experiment actually like related to the no makeup thing years and years ago. I was like, I'm gonna not wear makeup for a month. And it was like so anxiety producing for me.
Yeah.
And like, and I was interviewing people at the time. And I remember I'm like, oh, what are they gonna think of me? And I thought and I was like, how messed up is it though that I think my face is unprofessional? Like I thought it was unprofessional
Yeah.
to not wear makeup. And I'm like, I think the face that I have is unprofessional. Like again, no man has ever thought his face looks unprofessional,
That's
but
deep.
like nobody noticed, nobody cared like that I didn't
And
wear makeup, nobody ever said anything, you know. Yeah,
going
nobody
back
cares.
to the gender thing, I definitely thought at times like, man, I wish I could just go to the office with jeans and a sweatshirt. Like we have a pretty casual, you know, dress code at Fast Company,
You
but
could
I just
have.
always thought like I wouldn't take it that far. I wouldn't just show up here in a sweatshirt and jeans. Whereas you're right, our male counterparts don't even think about that. Like it would be unprofessional of me to just wear like leggings and a t-shirt to the office.
I've had a lengthy discussion with one of our editors who I won't name about if overalls are appropriate work attire.
I think if you wear them with confidence,
Yeah, right?
it's fine. Right?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it's just like wearing jeans. I used to even there's certain nuances like I would wear jeans to the office, but not jeans with holes, you know? Like I wouldn't do that. That's pushing it.
But I do think that, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it because you're a bit like, you know, Christina, you said you'd only been at Fast Company for a few months before you started. And yes, you've been there longer, but you're both much earlier in your careers than I am. About like, do you feel like you can get away with being more casual later on? Like, do you feel like you have to prove yourself more and your appearance is part of that earlier in your career?
Yeah, I actually was about to bring this up earlier, which is it's almost less about clothes to me, although sometimes it is, than it is about makeup. So I'm 28 very soon. But I've been told by many people in the office and who I've interviewed that like honestly I look about 19 a lot of the time. And I know it. And to be honest, like, yeah, I am always wearing baggy jeans and like have my hair up. I get it. But I do get self-conscious about it when I'm interviewing other people. I've had, interview CEOs or entertainers who've, like been surprised that I'm not a random intern or
Ugh.
and so sometimes like wearing makeup is a way to protect myself against that, I guess. Um on the other hand, this is something that Anissa kind of touched on in her article, and I don't want to like I don't really know how to talk about this. Maybe we just cut this out of the podcast. But there's like I have been in situations where like I have found that it's like when I've worn makeup or a dress or whatever, and like maybe I get hit on, or maybe people take me less seriously,
Mm.
So then I never know which side to come down on, because I'm like, when you're doing a long Q&A for the magazine, you're meeting somebody, I feel like I'm always thinking in terms of extremes. I'm like, am I wearing Converse and glasses to this meeting, or am I wearing like a nice dress and, some loafers or whatever? And I don't know. I still haven't figured out how to do it. That said, in terms of that problem, I think Zoom has helped.
Yeah.
Because people are not looking at your body, you know what I mean, and your face looks kind of different.
That's such a big thing, yeah, of like being taken seriously, and like a big calculus of like what goes into being taken seriously and professional and young, and then it's I don't know what women get. Do we get like a 5-year window or something? Because if you're like in your 20s, you're afraid of like being viewed as too young, and then if you're in your 40s or late 30s, you're like too old or something. I don't know. We get like maybe 6 months where we're like the right age. I don't know.
For me, it was like as soon as I started at Fast Company, I said, okay, I got to take myself to the mall and buy some work clothes. Like I
Mhm.
have like my play clothes and my work clothes.
What did you
And
buy out of interest?
I would go to stores and get like slacks, cardigans, some little button-up shirts, some little comfortable loafer type shoes
Just basically
because
anything at like Ann Taylor, right?
yes, exactly. New York and Company, rest in
Yep.
peace.
Yep.
I was
But
there a lot. And so then over the course of my first couple weeks, I started realizing that my peers were not dressing like me. And I was like, okay, I can bring it down a notch. Like there were some people who would come in the office with a 3-piece suit, you know who I'm talking about, who would just wear a suit like every day, David. And then there are some people who would wear like leggings and Uggs. And I was like, okay, I have to find my middle ground because I still want people to think that I care, you know? But as far as like professionality, I don't really know where this came from. This idea even came from. I guess college, parents, just everybody around you, older than you, telling you like this is how you're supposed to show up to work. And you want people to think that you care and you take your job seriously. And the best way to do that is through your appearance, I guess.
I mean, there's
growing
also sorry, go ahead.
growing up, I'm curious about this. Did you guys ever watch shows and think like, this is what a workplace is, and this is
Yes.
how I should dress?
Well, I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
Who
it
were
used
your models?
Probably, I mean, this is gonna really age me, but like True Jackson VP, like Kiki Palmer on Nickelodeon when she got her first little like marketing job and briefcases and blouses. I was like, okay, that's how I'm gonna dress when I grow up. And then this whole thing about like business casual started to come into play, and I was like, how casual are we talking?
well, there was like the old school view of like professional women with like like Murphy Brown and like shoulder pads, and then you wear your like sneakers and you change into your heels when you get in the
Yes.
office. But like we've written a lot about like sussing out the company culture by like what people wear, and you dress up. We always advise people like you dress up more for the interview, but then you like peep what's going on around to like know how casual or dressed up you can be for the office. But then there's also that old adage, right, of like dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we've done some stories about that too, of like, well, power dressing or like dressing to feel more. And I think like both of you kind of touched on that a little bit, of like the dressing to feel more professional or feel more taken seriously or whatever, even if it's not like what's needed.
I'm curious, and this is either of you can answer this, or both of you. Do either of you have like a piece of clothing that like that is that like power dressing thing, or like, you know, is that kind of dress for the job you want? What is it?
Not really. I guess just like I said, my cardigans and my slacks, I don't even have like a nice blazer or anything. Kind of the opposite of you, yes. I haven't bought new clothes in like a year. I've just been wearing what I have. And so
Oh, I've only bought like makeup.
makeup,
Oh,
okay.
my
Outfit over here.
closet is a graveyard of clothes I probably never wear again, because it's
Right.
all like my work clothes, and that I'm like, where am I ever going to wear these things? But I have I'm such a creature of habit where I have like, this is my panel dress. Like when I moderate a panel, I wear this one red dress.
Mhm.
And then if I have to do two panels, I have the backup dress. And like,
Wait, describe the dress. What does
It's
the
like
dress look like?
a red A-line like sleeveless dress. I don't know.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen
see?
it.
You already know.
That power dress.
You already know. And then now for Zoom, it doesn't look the same. Like you can't wear the dress because you're cut off. So then I have to have like my panel moderation Zoom blouses. And I think I read recently that like, or maybe one of you told me, where it was like sales of tops have gone up. Like nobody cares. Like you're wearing like sweatpants on the bottom, but then you wear like a professional, thing on the top.
It's
Totally.
it's like the outfit mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's the other thing that we haven't talked about when we're talking about like professional appearance and Zoom, especially, is like your background and
I
what's
was just
behind
gonna
you,
say,
right?
for me, I have the most anxiety about my background because of the fact that I'm 25, living at my mother's house. You never know what's going on behind it. It could be my brother, it could be my mom. And I just feel like, oh, now everybody knows that I live with my mom. I don't have my own space. What's on the wall? Like just all types of fears and anxiety.
That's interesting. But you, at the same time, you don't like blur your background or anything.
No,
That's
that's
more
true.
distracting.
Is it?
I don't know. When people, it's funny, like when people have a blurred background or like one of the fake backgrounds, I'm always like, what are you trying to hide? like you spend the time like trying to figure out what's really back there. But no, I mean, that's a big thing, right? Of like, you're in everybody's house. And I don't know, I feel like it can cause a lot of like economic anxiety too.
Yeah.
Like that more senior people, are further along, have houses, have whatever. But, when you're living with roommates or you have a, whatever situation behind you, aren't you like more anxious about like talk about professional and unprofessional if you have, a pile of dirty laundry behind you, or like me, I think I've brought this up a lot of times, but I really like realized how untenable my living situation was when I was in New York and still in our apartment. I was doing a keynote address, and one of the people from our video team was like, Kate, can you cover up that pipe with the chipped paint behind you?
Oh my gosh.
Like, do you have a big potted plant? And I'm like, no, I don't have a big potted plant. And they're like, we can see your son's crib. I'm like, this is the only space I have. But,
right.
yeah.
Before living here at my mom's house, I had a studio apartment, and I just felt like now everybody knows I live in this tiny box. Like nobody knew where I lived before. And also, this is so silly, but when people have like nice, big, robust bookshelves, I feel some type of way because I'm like, I don't have a book, a plant, nothing.
Yeah, there's a lot of like things you feel like you have to prove about yourself, right? Like, oh, I'm an intellectual. I have floor to ceiling bookcases,
Yeah,
potted plants, and yeah, it's a whole different level of being professional. Yeah.
all on this tiny little screen. Thanks a lot, Zoom.
So now I kind of want to look to the future. What do you guys think needs to change? And what do you think needs to stay? Like, is there anything about this lifestyle that we think should kind of keep going? And this is kind of an interesting one because both of you, I think, are working fully remote from now on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, what I think needs to stay, and I've been saying this since the beginning of the pandemic, is I would love for it to be a loosening of the beauty standards for women. Like, I would love for us to be able, and I know, yeah, as you're saying that you like bought more makeup and you felt like you had to like lean into it more, but I would love for it to loosen that, for us to like be able to reclaim our getting ready time in the morning, and for women's natural faces to become more normalized, and gray hair to be okay, and just these these kind of impossible beauty standards that have like sapped our energy to go away.
I like that. I'm talking to you with my motion smooth my face smoothing setting on Zoom, so I don't really have a leg to stand on.
Stop everything. There's a face smoothing setting on Zoom?
Yeah, it makes you look better. I
never used it.
I have a
never
small
knew this
amount. I have
existed.
like a very small amount of makeup on, but also this Zoom setting makes it look like my skin is even toned.
Wow.
See,
So-
I'm like, let's abolish beauty standards, and then I'm like, stop everything. I can
Right.
smooth my face.
Yeah, I
Zoom.
so don't have a leg to stand on here because I am the problem. Like I am part of the problem. For me,
I didn't know that existed.
yeah, it's
you'll give me a tutorial on how to smooth my Zoom face.
I heard about it from our editor in chief during a print meeting. She brought it up, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh man! All right, well, I'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I definitely would like for all bras to be banned. We don't ever have to bring them back. If we could just keep bras and heels out the picture. But on a serious note, I agree with Kate. I really do hope that we're a little more lenient towards women, just dressing more casually, not always being put together. It's okay if we don't want to show face, you know? And also, one of my fears is that this whole issue has kind of made people a little more self-conscious, and I am worried about the mental health aspect, how people feel about themselves, because beginning of quarantine I had fun, eating snacks, lounging around, but then a couple months in I was like, okay, like I'm putting on some weight, like I don't feel good about myself. So I do hope that people are taking care of themselves mentally and not letting all of this weigh on them.
What do you guys think needs to go? Is there anything about this lifestyle where you're just like, this, I can't do this anymore? I know for me personally, and I will say this is like a me, it's a hell of my own creation, which is that like there is no work-life boundary. Like I am talking to people at like 7 a.m, and I am talking to people at 1 a.m, and I am like, just working all the time. And it's partly because then like it's like our schedules have been turned around, right? So maybe you take like an extra break in the morning, but then you're working really late, or like the knock-on effect of, in the past, if I worked super late, I still had to get up pretty early and make it to work. But now it's like I work super late and then I get up at like 8:45 and like put work clothes on and start working at 9, and like it's like this knock-on effect. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, we've written about that too, of like that there's and that's the biggest downside always to remote work, is that there's like a blurring of work and personal, and that you're working where you live, and that you never kind of can like shut the door and leave like you can, in a physical office. Yeah, I think that 100% needs, that's something that we don't need to wait to address that, right? Like we can start to set those boundaries now, and should. I hope, and I wonder if the flip side of that coin is that like now that everybody's been in our personal lives, and one of our editors said that she never thought about herself as a mother until the pandemic happened, because she could separate that part of her life, and like as a professional woman sometimes you do, to be taken seriously on the other like side of that coin, but like you can't now when you're struggling with all of that. It would be nice if that continues, if the transparency into, I don't need to hide this part of my life, these things I'm struggling with, the fact that I need more flexibility during the day or whatever, that can remain. But yeah, that burnout, work life blur, all hours, everything goes sort of thing. Yeah, that needs to be remedied for sure.
I'm curious, as two people who are, so to give some background to our listeners, because I realize you don't really know us. You don't know us. You think you do, but you don't.
Yeah.
Kate moved from Park Slope, Brooklyn. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
To Ann Arbor, Michigan.
That's right.
During the pandemic. And Christina is now sort of officially living in Jersey, where she's from, and working from home full time. So both of them are remote employees. But I'm curious, as some of us, aka me, go back to the office, how do you think about this kind of hybrid workplace? I know Julia Herbst, who edits our Worklife section, did a really wonderful story about kind of GitLab, which is a mostly remote company, and how they handle it. But do you guys have thoughts?
I think that our employees and coworkers who are going to be staying home, I feel like they're going to have a little more empathy and sympathy, because before the pandemic, I remember sitting in hybrid meetings where remote workers, they had to call into Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was at the time. Now look at me. But they had to call in, and it was kind of like, "Oh, well, you're not here, so you don't get to be a part of it." And now I feel like that remote workers will, be more included in things because of the fact that we've all had to be in there, kind of be in their shoes a little bit. So I am hopeful that it will go a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, and that's actually I took a course, a GitLab course on remote work management for Recommender, and I found it really interesting when they talked about hybrid meetings, because I remember that we've always had a handful of employees that have been remote. We have, a lot of people on the West Coast, and I beforehand, before the pandemic, would work from home like a couple days a week, but I would always arrange my schedule so my meetings would be the days I was in the office, because I
Yeah.
knew how horrible it was to call into a
Exactly.
meeting. It was like one little microphone in the middle of the conference room table, and like you couldn't hear anybody and nobody could hear you. And GitLab actually does it where, like, their recommendation was that when you're in a conference room, all of the in-person people should still be on Zoom with their laptops in front of them, so that everybody's on a level playing field. So all the remote people can see you and hear you just the same. Even though you're sitting next to somebody, you're still like communicating with them through Zoom, which sounds a little like,
That's really unique.
dystopian, but
Yeah, the
also
future is
like,
now.
but also like a way to level the playing field, right? I mean, I think we're really going to do ourselves a disservice if we try to replicate 2019 when we go back to the office,
Yeah.
It's interesting. I feel like Kate, well, it's not, I feel like, I know out of the three of us, Kate, you are the person with hiring and firing power. So first of all, I need to be nice to you. But second of all,
I don't know if I can directly hire and fire.
but secondly, I'm curious, like, whether this kind of new situation where maybe more people are working remote has changed anything when it comes to like accessibility in the workplace, has changed anything when it comes to who we can interview for jobs. I mean, how do you think about that?
I think I mean, obviously I'm a little bit biased since I moved away. I think that,
Yeah.
remote work is totally feasible. And we've written about it too, about how like this really opens up the talent pool to anywhere. Like we were so limited, especially in media, becomes this kind of like in club where you have to have these connections, but you also have to live in the most expensive city in the entire country. And to try to get like an entry level job, like, yeah, I don't see why you can't hire somebody remotely. And I think the big challenge there is like onboarding and starting in a new company remotely. I mean, like Christina,
True.
you said you'd only been at Fast Company for a few months, and I'd love to hear like how, if you found it hard to like feel a part of the company when you're not there. But we've have a couple of people that started like right when the pandemic hit slash after. And yeah, I think there's a big learning curve to be able to like feel a part of the company culture. But I think that there's no reason to limit, I mean, that's a burden that's on management. That shouldn't be a burden that's on an employee or be a reason to not hire somebody.
Yeah, my situation is actually like so ironic. When I first got hired at Fast Company, I was living like far away, like 3 hours away. I had a crazy commute, but I wanted the job. I was hungry, so I took it. And then I was like, okay, I need to move closer. So I moved to North Jersey to, be right across the bridge and to be able to get into New York City. But then we got sent home. So it's like I moved my whole life and everything for the job just to go back home. So after my lease was up, moved back in with my mom in South Jersey. And for me, this has really been a blessing because now I'm able to save some money, not commuting, not paying rent, and as an entry level employee, that's really important. So I think that it has been great. And I do think that it will open the doors for, more outside people who aren't in the New York metropolitan area to be able to work wherever they want.
Yeah. I like
And
that.
another thing to point, oh, go ahead.
No, all you.
Okay, I was going to say, like, another thing to point out is just the fact that I feel like I am the same productivity wise or even more productive at home. So I think this whole thing has just proven that I can do my job from home. And that's why I did talk to my manager about working from home, and definitely because it's been working for me and I don't really see a need to go in. So, I mean, sometimes you do miss that serendipity and just meeting people in the hallway. And to your point, Kate, I didn't get to meet a lot of people when I first started. I kind of stayed in my bubble. So I do miss that aspect of it. But, this is definitely proven like everything could just be an email.
I
What?
mean, that's the thing is like when a remote culture works, it's a results based culture rather than like a FaceTime based culture. And hopefully, yes, we can sort that out for you, that it's like more so that you don't have to like I mean, I think there's a pressure when you're in the office of like you feel like a slacker if you leave at 5 or if you come in late or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit on Slack because like you're on or you're not, or like, oh my God, I have to reply to a Slack message as soon as it's sent. But hopefully in a remote work culture, you're more, it's more of like what work you get done rather than like how many how many hours you're sitting in front of your computer.
It's funny, so I mostly write for the print magazine or edit for the print magazine. And what that means is like a lot of the work is like kind of autonomous, so I'll get assigned something and it'll be due in like 2 weeks or whatever it is. And I go out and do the reporting and write it on my own and hand it in by the due date. And when you're in the office, I feel like there's this amount of like, you can talk about it with your editor and people can see you're working, like people can literally see you taking phone calls or making notes. But I know, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, I was really stressed out about like, I haven't slacked like any of my bosses. Like I know I've been working through this whole day, but like I haven't slacked anyone, so no one else knows it. So maybe people think that I am like eating a lot of snacks and like watching bad TV, and it's like, no, I'm doing that later.
Yes, I
Not during
totally
my
agree.
workday.
But it's like Slack is now like participation in Slack is the new version of FaceTime, of the new
Yeah.
version of like being seen in the office is like proving that you're, yeah. And I guess maybe some of that also comes with tenure and also comes with like feeling comfortable in your position and like secure that, and which is hard when you're early in your career. And it's also hard if you're new in a job too. Like, how do you prove, if you have autonomous work, like how do you prove that you're working on it until it gets turned in? Like all of those days and hours that you're working on it silently by yourself and no one can see you and they don't know if you're just like sitting and watching Netflix or actually
Yeah.
doing your work. Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it kind of goes back to something you said earlier about what we were wearing, which is like, no one cares. Like,
No one, I mean,
like,
everybody's so busy. No one's like, I guarantee
truly,
no one
like-
has been like, what is Yaz doing right now?
I
I bet
know.
she's not working. I bet she's eating a snack. Like no one's like,
yeah, it's like I
wondering.
never think about my coworkers that way. So why would they be thinking about me all the time?
Yeah.
I know this is something that I think about a lot. And I remember my dad said this to me, which is like, when I'm at work or in a meeting or whatever, and I say something really dumb, which happens all the time. And then I'll spend like the rest of the day being like, oh, why did I say that? What do they think
We're like
of
the
me?
same.
Like,
I mean, that's humans.
horrible.
Everybody's like that.
But
yeah.
like the thing is, like,
no one.
I don't remember a single thing said in some meetings. Not that they're not important, but
Yeah.
like I just go back to my work and like check my email and move on.
I mean, that's the thing is like somebody else says something dumb in a meeting and it doesn't even register with
Yeah.
you, but you're thinking of like the thing that you think that you said that was dumb
Right.
or yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that kind of never goes away. I mean, I don't know. I
Oh,
feel like
good.
you'd have to be, I feel like you have to be a little bit of like an egomaniac to like never be self-conscious, to like never worry about sounding dumb or interrupting too much. That's what I worry about, that I like interrupt too much or that I'm not a good listener, or that, I mean, everybody has insecurities like that. But yeah, I think it's a good like mantra to repeat to yourself all the time is like, nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention.
No one
Nobody's
cares.
wondering what
Yeah.
you're doing. No one cares what you look like, which isn't to belittle the fact that there is an unfair toll for women, especially with like appearance standards and professionalism standards and being taken seriously. And that's all very real. But yeah, the beating ourselves up that we do about like, oh, how did I look? And does my nose look funny? Like you said, like, you know, like nobody's ever, I was on a Zoom, like a friend chat Zoom the other day with two other women who are like my age, and the one does a lot of like panels and things like that, and she goes, so I realized my eyebrows are shaped differently. And we're like,
yeah, I think about this all the time.
but we're like, what the hell are you talking about? And she shared her screen and like highlighted, like circled on it. She's like, see, in this one, see my eyebrow in this one, and see my eyebrow in this one. I'm like, oh my God, Rory, nobody is looking. Like nobody is paying attention to that. So
that's what I meant by like, I think we're all just paying too much attention to ourselves now. Like sometimes on Zoom, I just look at myself. I don't even look at other people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really look like this. So
yeah,
I think
everybody else is doing that too. Everyone else.
I think the weirdest thing for me was realizing like, it's like I've seen myself in pictures enough. Like I'm a like person on social media, like, but realizing I talk out of one side of my mouth a fair amount was like really rough for me.
I feel like, not to step on your social media toes, Christina, but I feel like it would be like a really great Twitter poll of like, what is the weird, or just like people to tweet, like, what is the weird thing about your face that you've noticed in the pandemic?
that's a good
like,
poll.
Eyebrows differently, talking out of one side of your face. Like,
My thing is blinking. Apparently I blink a lot. So now I know.
See,
no one cares.
No one cares.
No, that's exactly what we want to leave our listeners with, that nobody's paying as much attention to you as you think.
Yeah.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for speaking with us. Where can people follow you, find your podcast, all that stuff?
Oh, guys, thanks so much. I'm so happy and excited for this show. I'm on Twitter at Kathleen E. Davis. And my podcast is The New Way We Work, which is available on fastcompany.com or Apple or any of those podcast places. But yeah, thank you guys so much. This is such a fun conversation, and this show is so fantastic.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you so much.